The words hit me like a physical blow, a gut punch that left me gasping for air in our shared living room. "I'm no longer attracted to you," she said, her voice flat, devoid of the warmth I had known for 8 years. We'd been together for so long, married for 4 of them, building a life brick by painstaking brick, a life filled with quiet moments and loud laughter, a life I thought was ours. I was there for her through her transplant and other health problems, a rock, a steady anchor in the storms of her life. Now, that same voice, the one that had whispered, "I love you," so many times, delivered the next line, the one that truly shattered me. "I've developed feelings for an older coworker." What happened next will shock you. My world, once so solid and predictable, crumbled into a chaotic, terrifying whirlwind. I felt like I was drowning, pulled under by a tidal wave of betrayal and confusion. I had a sickening suspicion, a cold dread that coiled in my stomach. She told me she was going away for the night with a female friend. The little voice in my head, the one I had learned to ignore for so long, screamed, "She's lying." My hands gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles were white as I drove to the friend's house that night. And there it was, the friend's car, parked right at home. My heart sank, a lead weight pulling me down into a dark pit of despair. The flimsy lie, the brazen deception, it was all there in that empty driveway. I held onto a sliver of hope, a desperate, foolish thought that maybe they had gone together. My cousin, who is friends with her, confirmed my worst fear. My wife had lied. The woman I swore to love forever had chosen a night with another man over the truth, over me. I went away camping that weekend, to process, to find some peace in the wilderness, but all I found was a new kind of terror. When I came back, she was furious, not at herself, but at me. "You spied on me," she shrieked, her rage a flimsy mask for her guilt. The twisted irony was almost laughable, if it didn't hurt so much. Days later, once I calmed down, we talked. She admitted she was with him, but insisted they stayed in a hostel and nothing more than kissing happened. Even to this day, she says that, but I don't believe it. I moved out a week later to give us space. In the silence that followed her confession, 1,000 memories flashed before my eyes, each one now tainted. The first time we met, the nervous excitement of our first date, the day we got married, standing there in front of our friends and family, promising forever. All of it felt like a cruel joke. I had supported her through so much, been her unwavering companion through her most vulnerable moments. I was a part of her family, and she was a part of mine. I had tried to include her in my wider family, because she was an immigrant on a spouse visa, and I knew how lonely that could be. I had even tried to be more intimate when she said that was a problem, but she seemed disinterested. I had offered couples therapy, but she said she had already given up. The cracks in our foundation had been there for a while, I now saw, but I was too blind, too in love to notice. Now, the entire structure was collapsing around me. The truth was a tidal wave, and it was threatening to drown me. I was 35 years old, and my life, as I knew it, was over. I was a man of my word, and I had promised to be there for her, no matter what. I had honored my promise, even when she didn't honor hers. I felt a pang of guilt for having spied on her, but it was quickly replaced by a cold, hard resolve. I wouldn't let her get away with this. I wouldn't let her destroy my life and walk away without a scratch. I would fight for myself, for my sanity, for my future. The battle lines were drawn, and I was ready to go to war. The truth, when it finally came, was a bitter pill. I ended it in late June, when she admitted to sleeping with him the week before. This was after I had already given her another chance to work on the marriage. The full weight of her recklessness hit me like a truck. I had been there for her through her transplant and other health problems. We had 8 years of memories, and she threw it all away. She threw away her marriage, the house that we share, her visa, her chance for a family, something she still wants now, all for a much older man who gave her butterflies. He already had a family, 2 teenage girls, and realistically was not going to give her a family of her own. He is also closer to retirement age than I am. I was 35, and he was 50. The scale of her betrayal was staggering, but what came next was truly shocking. I still can't wrap my head around her actions. It's a cruel puzzle with missing pieces. We were planning to start a family, and discussed it again just this year, before all of this came out. But she felt I wasn't ambitious enough nor serious enough because I mentioned our money problems and financial difficulties, and felt I kept postponing everything. The truth is, our lives were a constant crisis. Her mom's cancer, the potential of me losing my job, her own back issues from herniated discs, and the deaths of 2 of our family pets around the same time. It was a perfect storm of chaos, and she never communicated any of her concerns until it was too late. She shut me out, and now I'm paying the price. The betrayal was not just in her actions, but in her silence. She let the problems fester and grow, and when they finally exploded, they took everything with them. I tried to be a good partner, a good man, but she didn't want a partner. She wanted a roommate, a caretaker, a man who would fix her problems without ever asking for anything in return. I was nothing but a convenience to her, a stepping stone to a different life. The truth was a constant, gnawing presence. Every time I looked at our shared bank account, every time I thought about the house we co-owned, I was reminded of her deception. The house was not just a house, it was a cage. I felt trapped, a prisoner in my own life. I had given her my word that I wouldn't do anything to spite or punish her, and I intended to keep that promise. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that she was punishing me every day. She was living in our house, a constant reminder of her betrayal, while I was living elsewhere, homeless in my own life. I was a man of my word, but she was a woman of none. I felt a cold anger rising in me, a righteous fury that had been simmering beneath the surface for months. I would not be a victim. I would not be a fool. I would find a way out, a way to reclaim my life, even if it meant breaking my own promise. Then, out of the blue, came her message, a sudden flicker of light in the darkness. She said she'd been thinking of me constantly and was wanting to see if we could give it another go. She said she was sorry, but her lies felt like a wall between us, a barrier I couldn't seem to climb. I'm trapped, you see. We co-own a house, and I can't divorce her for at least another year. She's living in our house, and I'm living elsewhere. My friends and family, the people who have seen me through this nightmare, think it's a terrible idea to get back together. But she's a master of manipulation, and the situation is about to get much darker. The truth is, she has a secret weapon, and she's not afraid to use it. She's an immigrant here on a spouse visa. She has expressed deep fear and even mentioned suicide recently at the thought of having to go back to her home country. I feel emotionally pulled in every direction, rejected, guilt-tripped by her threats, yet she still seemingly wants me. To top it all off, I still love her. My head is screaming at me to run, to protect myself, but my heart is still holding on to the memories of the woman I used to know. My ethical code, my stupid promise not to spite or punish her, keeps me from forcing her out of the house. I'm a man of my word, even if it means sacrificing my own happiness. But what if she's just using me? What if this is all a desperate ploy to stay in the country? She even insists that she wants to get back together despite me telling her that I will honor the visa. The more I thought about her actions, the more I realized that she had been playing a long game. Her fearful avoidant traits, her lack of empathy, her jealousy, it all made sense now. She wasn't a victim, she was a predator. She had a goal, and she was willing to do whatever it took to achieve it. Her suicide threats, her sudden desire to reconcile, her attempts to guilt-trip me, it was all a performance, a desperate play to keep me tied to her. I was her lifeline, her only hope of staying in the country, and she was not going to let go. I was the fool who had given her a key to my house, a key to my life, and she was using it to keep me trapped. The love I felt was a ghost, a memory of a person who no longer existed. The woman I knew was gone, and in her place was a stranger, a cold, calculating stranger who would stop at nothing to get what she wanted. I was standing at a crossroads, and I knew I had to choose a different path. I had to choose myself. And then I had my answer. Pandora's box was wide open, and there was no closing it. I couldn't trust her. My friends and family were right. She has a history of being emotionally avoidant and lacked empathy. Her jealousy, her possessiveness, it all came flooding back. The puzzle was finally complete, and the picture it painted was not of a heartbroken woman, but of a master manipulator. It was not a sad tale of a love gone wrong, but a cold, calculated plan. I had to choose myself. I couldn't be held hostage by her emotional blackmail, her threats, or her pathetic lies. I had to be strong, to honor the man I was trying to be. The truth set me free. I stood my ground, regardless of the consequences. I refused to be a pawn in her game. Justice was served, not by a judge, but by my own strength and resolve. I was free. I would rebuild my life, piece by piece, on a foundation of honesty and self-respect. She was no longer a weight around my neck, and the future, once so bleak, finally looked bright. The love I felt was still there, but it was no longer a chain. It was a memory, a part of my past that I could finally leave behind. I had endured the betrayal, the lies, and the emotional manipulation. I was no longer in a state of limbo. I had found my closure. And for the first time in a long time, I felt hope. The final confrontation was not a screaming match, but a quiet, final act of defiance. I looked her in the eye and told her that I knew the truth, that I saw her for what she was. I told her that I would not be a part of her charade any longer. She tried to deny it, to guilt-trip me one last time, but her words were empty. They had no power over me anymore. I had found my strength, and she had lost hers. I walked out of that house, the one we had built together, and I didn't look back. The past was behind me, and the future was ahead. My friends and family welcomed me back with open arms, and I knew that I was not alone. The road ahead would be long and difficult, but I was finally on the right path. I was finally home. The love I felt for her was a ghost, a memory of a person who no longer existed. The woman I knew was gone, and in her place was a stranger, a cold, calculating stranger who would stop at nothing to get what she wanted. I was standing at a crossroads, and I knew I had to choose a different path. I had to choose myself. The love I felt was no longer a chain. It was a memory, a part of my past that I could finally leave behind. I had endured the betrayal, the lies, and the emotional manipulation. I was no longer in a state of limbo. I had found my closure. And for the first time in a long time, I felt hope. I knew that I would be okay. I would not just survive, I would thrive. I had found my strength, and I would never lose it again. The story was over, and the next chapter of my life had just begun.